If you're somebody who's a speaker or you want to be a speaker, this is the episode you want to watch because I had Miroslav Bardovic here and he's been speaking all over the place. I mean, like TEDx stages, like, I mean, just everywhere, right? And what I love is the power of presence, right? He talks about how you use the power of presence to own the stage of communication. And he is so different than anybody I've had on the show when it comes to speaking and how he does it and what he does to connect with the audience. If you're a speaker, I think you're going to want to pay attention. This was really, really a phenomenal conversation. And I wasn't sure where it was going to go at first because I didn't know what the conversation would be about. But once we started like talking and we talked about what he does and how he does it, I couldn't stop talking to the guy. So I can't wait for you guys to listen to this. Absolutely phenomenal. Here we go. What up, y'all? This is Dina Perez, and this is Straight Talk, no sugar added. And today I have Miroslav here. Oh my gosh, he's amazing. He is a TEDx speaker, facilitator, best-selling author who's helped over 20,000 people worldwide unlock their authentic voice. So you guys better pay freaking attention, okay? He is the founder of the Enlivened Speaking Institute and the author of Give Them Goosebumps. Utilize the power of presence to own the stage of communication. Now, I know a lot of you that I speak to are always talking about how to show up authentically. How do we speak on stages? How do we do all of that? Well, I got the guy for you, so pay attention, okay? With an academic background in embodied presence, Miroslav off the beaten path approach helps leaders, coaches, and entrepreneurs communicate and lead with mind, body, and spirit. So, pay attention and be in this amazing conversation because I know it's going to be super meaningful. Welcome to Straight Talk, Miroslav. How are you?
Thank you, Nina. I'm amazing. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. I know I have a lot of energy. I'm going to come at you. That's just how I am. And you seem like such a laid back dude. So I'm probably coming at you a little strong from my side of the screen, but welcome to the show. And I know I gave a little bio, but I do want to get to know you. And so who are you? Like, who are you?
Hmm. I mean that's a question and a half, isn't it? Sometimes I wonder the same thing. I just got awarded my CSP, which is a certified speaking professional. It's kind of like the highest global distinction you can have as a speaker.
That's awesome.
And I was kind of laughing, not laughing, but just like having this contemplation. I just shared it with people. I'm like, yeah, great. Outwardly, this looks like the accolade that maybe I was yearning for, or some sense of making it as a speaker. You don't really have this in the speaking profession. If you're a lawyer, it's very obvious when you've made it. As a speaker, it's kind of like there's no benchmark for what making it is. And I was like, on one hand, this is amazing. And internally, I still feel like the same person I've always been. Still the same insecurities. It's still the same, like, is what I'm doing good enough?
Mm,
It's still this sense of like, I don't want to say who am I supposed to be in the world, but kind of like what's the purpose of it all?
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's really interesting too, Miroslav, because I think that's something a lot of us go through, right? Like I've built a really great business myself and all that kind of stuff, and I still struggle with that same word sometimes. Like, okay, why and what is this about, and where do I go from here? And some days it's very clear, and some days it's not so clear. And I think that that's just something everybody goes through, and some people stay stuck in that, right?
Mm,
So
yeah.
how do you push yourself forward anyway? Because that is an accolade. That is a beautiful award to receive, right? And some of us are just starting to explore being on stages, right? So
Mm,
tell us about your journey. Let's start there. How did you even start speaking on stages and why?
yeah. I mean, for me, it's like I don't even need to keep pushing myself forward. It's like there's so much momentum inside to keep expressing what's being
Mm,
unexpressed. That's kind of like what keeps me going. If anything, I need to tell myself to slow down. But a brief kind of overview of me. So I came to Australia as a refugee when I was 5 years old because of the war in my home country, Yugoslavia.
mm,
We're refugees twice. First, we're refugees in Serbia just to get out of the conflict zone, and then shortly after that, we got given refugee visas for Australia as well. So I grew up here, and at a very early age, I developed a stutter, selective mutism, which meant I couldn't talk or express myself when I wanted to. Around
Wow.
friends, family, basically when I felt safe, it was fine. The problem was there was a lot of situations where I didn't feel safe.
Right.
Um, like school, sporting, anything that wasn't inside of like, a very small, intimate group of people I knew, my voice would just cut out and I wouldn't be able to express myself, which often means people just assume you're either, stupid or you can't comprehend things or you're a special kid, all of those kind of things. So I want to say that was just my childhood, but it probably lasted uh, all the way through till maybe my early uni days. I started meditating, and when I started meditating, I was like, I've probably been, I didn't even have this language, but I was like, the inner awareness was like, I've probably been anxious most of my life. And I
Wow.
didn't even know I was anxious because it was just normal.
Mhm.
Potentially depressed too. But again, it was just normal. So there was nothing else to compare it to. And as I started meditating and feeling more of myself, I started asking this question: how can I connect with people but keep feeling this way? It's great that I
Mm.
have this sense of beautiful experience of the world when my eyes closed and my legs are crossed. But I'm kind of missing out on everything else that isn't this. And what came back very quickly was you have to start teaching. You have to start teaching, you have to start speaking. And that's terrifying when you're
Mm.
someone whose voice often cuts out and you can't get a single word out. It's like, so I'm going to invite a group of people, put myself on a position where I'm like, hey, I can teach you guys something and run the risk of not being able to say anything and make a fool out of myself. And even my teacher at the time, like he didn't know what I was going for internally, but he looked at me and he's like, you're a teacher, you have to speak.
Wow.
And eventually when I did start doing it, it was like an open-eyed meditation. It's like, yes, there was a truckload of fear, but because of that relationship with meditation, it's like the fear didn't stop me. If anything, it made me more present when I started expressing myself. And I didn't know it back then, but that's now led to a lifelong career where after me speaking enough, people started coming up to me and going, whatever you're doing is very different than what I'm used to seeing on stage, and I want
Mm.
to learn from you. Um, and more recently it's become other professional speakers reaching out as well and saying like, okay, we can see that this is not what we've been used to as well. So it's been a fascinating journey, and I feel we're not even at the climax of it as well.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what it is you speak on stage about. Is it the mind, body, spirit? Like, tell me about what you're talking about that people are finding, such a unique value in it. Very interested.
Yeah, we could call it the power of presence, and I'll put this in two different ways. uh, in the more corporate space, what I do is support people to create rapid trust.
Mm.
Now, any relationship you have in life is going to be based on trust. If you're in business and you want to make sales, that comes down to trust. If you're in leadership, how well the team around you moves and executes is going to be based on trust. Like everything moves at the speed of trust. If you're even in a romantic relationship, nothing really happens without trust.
Right.
So when we break down trust on a interpersonal level, it's like there's a couple of things that we as humans relate to very quickly. One of them is presence, and the other one is authenticity, the capacity to express what's really going on for us. And sometimes we might not like what someone says to us, but if we can feel their authenticity, it's like, I can trust this. I might not like it, but at least I can trust them now. As
Yeah.
opposed to when people are people pleasing or trying to say the right thing, or, playing the manager or whatever the thing is. It's like,
Hmm.
yes,
Hmm.
we're following a process, but we're breeding a culture of distrust inside of that process following.
How did you
I
discover
hope that
that
answers your
though? I'm just wondering, like, how you discovered that, right? Because you're talking about like embodying that, right? Embodying authenticity, embodying like who you are and all of that stuff. And I'm just really curious as to how did you start focusing on a deeper level, on a more conscious level, on a way to communicate, right? Because you came from not really communicating to really having this amazing angle on how to communicate, right? At least that's what I'm hearing as I'm hearing you speak about what you talk about, right? Because it's very interesting that you're talking about the mind, the body, the spirit, right? And how that all aligns. And then you also were creative enough to say, I can use this in corporations as well. So I'm just so curious, like how you started to learn all of those skill sets or embody all of that.
Yeah. Early on, when I first started speaking, I did the usual thing. I spent hours stressing about this thing, wrote it all down. And when I finally managed to get it out, I was like, I can't use this. If I'm going to teach people to be authentic and to meet the moment and to be intimate with life, I can't memorize this thing and go out there and present it. I'm like,
Mm.
I have to be the living transmission of what I'm going to offer people.
Hmm.
So it was absolutely terrifying. I'm like, again, the stakes went up higher. It was now a talk. I wasn't teaching or training. And I just had to let myself do that. And like one of the biggest things that supported me on this path is the feedback I received. And sometimes people didn't even know they were giving me feedback. Like this
Oh.
one talk was in a big warehouse, kind of like in my background here. And one woman, and some people just up at the back talking. One woman came up to me afterwards. She was like, from the moment you started speaking, I wanted to be listening to you. I was like too awkward to leave my friends. So I had to listen to you from the back of the room while I was pretending to engage with them. And I was like, okay, whatever I'm doing here is working. That people feel that deeply pulled when they
Mm-hmm.
can hardly even hear it. There's a sense of gravitating towards whatever this is. And what I discovered is a lot of that comes from how deeply we're willing to meet the moment.
Mm.
Like, yes, we can prepare, and yes, you do want to prepare, but when you're stepping out onto the stage, being intimate with the audience is more important than the thing you've memorized. It's just like having a coffee
So
with a friend.
good.
Like, yeah, you can have ideas what you want to talk about. And, like the higher the stake is, yes, the more prepared you are and the more you know what you're delivering. But if your friend at coffee says, I need support, you're not going to keep hammering them with a script. And it's the same
Yeah.
with an audience. Like you're listening and responding to where the audience is and what they need.
Yeah. I mean, okay, that's brilliant, right? So you're focusing on like having this deeper, more conscious connection when you're communicating with all of these people, right? Because, if you're talking to bigger stages, with with a multiple amount of people there, how do you actually connect with them? So is there something like, is it a skill that you were trained in or something to in order to speak from the stage, connect from the stage? Because I know that happens to be something that people sell all the time, right? Connecting from the stage, selling from the stage, like all of that kind of stuff. How did you hone that in for yourself?
A lot of trial and error, a lot of putting myself out there,
Okay.
a lot
Okay.
of, I want to say vulnerability, but not the kind of vulnerability that, I don't know, you see on a Facebook post, like
Mm-hmm.
actually putting myself out there without knowing
Mm.
what's going to happen. And
Oh.
recognizing, early on, I remember people would say, I'd be speaking to someone that might be able to put me on a stage, and they would be like, so what do you speak about? And like at this stage, I had a website, it all looked proper, and I would still say, I'm like, I don't know, give me a microphone and let's find out. And that was my process for a long time. It's like actually to
Okay.
step into the unknown and to find what's going to bring a natural sense of meeting between what this audience is desiring and what I have experienced or deeper relationship in that I can offer both of us to grow inside of. And I think doing that without any kind of platform for long enough, it just kind of opened up this skill set to be like, oh, there's always a living, breathing relationship that's here.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So that's not easy for a lot of people though, right? I mean, Miroslav, speaking on stages, some people freeze up, that freeze, flight, all that kind of stuff happens. I like speaking on stages actually. And the minute the microphone turns on or the lights come on, I don't know, I feel like I feel at home. I don't feel nervous or anything, but that's not everybody's cup of tea, right?
Yeah.
And I for damn sure don't do it like you. Just give me a mic and see what happened. You know what I'm saying? Like at least I need an idea or a thought process or framework or something. So I'm just like curious, like when you're helping others, when you're showing others on how to be authentic, how to show up in their authentic presence, right? How do you like go about helping someone like that, because I know that it's crucial for speakers and leaders and entrepreneurs to know how it is to turn that on, to actually be authentic and be present and know what to say next. So how do you do that? How do you help people like build that trust and be able to do that as and flow like you flow?
Yeah. So the first layer is giving them the safety
Mm.
to let go of the masks or the barriers that they're holding up, which they often don't even know that they're holding up. And the only reason we do that, the only reason we posture is because there's not enough safety. Or at some point of their life, they didn't have enough safety and they realized, okay, I'm going to have to pretend to be X person um,
Wow.
to survive. And the first part is always just giving them the capacity to relax and to realize they don't have to do that.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
naturally, what flows underneath that is the authenticity that's been stuck. So I found that sometimes we banter on an authenticity like it's a on and off switch, like you either have it or you don't. And for
Mhm.
me, it's a continual relationship to the moment. It's like, am I willing to keep being intimate with this moment as opposed to, I was authentic yesterday, so I'm still authentic today. It's like, yes, and we're human beings. It's like the nature of human beings is change. So the
Yeah.
values and beliefs and desires and goals you had last year might not be the same ones today. And if you keep being authentic, you realize you don't even really have control over that. You just have to
Mm.
serve life as it's moving through you. It's like, oh, these are my desires now.
That's so good. That's really being tapped in though, isn't it? That's really being that's honing in to who you are authentically, like who you really are, not what the world has told you, not what you read in a book, not what the coach said you should do, but really tapping in to this deeper level of you. That's so good and scary sometimes, Miroslav, because we may not like what we see, right? We may not like what comes up. And so I know that, that is that's a beautiful place to be though, because that means you're just showing up. You're literally just being you and showing up in the world and making your mark. That's a very
Mm,
interesting way to approach this, right? So I know that
yep.
you wrote your book, right? So your book is Give Them Goosebumps. Talk to me about that, because I know that the subtitle is Utilize the Power of Presence to Own the Stage of Communication. So tell me what you're guiding us through in that book.
Yeah, I'm going to bring these two things together. So
Yeah.
a lot of this process that I just talked to you about, like where we're taking off a layer of who we are to meet out to let the real self come out and interact
Mm,
with the audience. I'll often do this on stage as well. I'm like, it's one thing for me to embody this and talk about it. It's a different thing when you see it in practice. And when I bring someone on stage and I take them through that process, they will absolutely wow and connect with the whole audience. And I think this is because as human beings, we crave realness and authenticity.
yeah. Yeah.
And when you see someone just drop that mask straight away, you're going to be like, I don't even know this person, but I feel closer to them now.
Mm,
And when we utilize, and also there is a lot of fear as well. I had a
mhm.
conference I spoke at last year where the woman, one of the organizers in the conference was the person that jumped up. And she came up to me afterwards and she goes, Miroslav, I specialize. She's an Ironman athlete. And she goes, one of my strengths is how quickly my heartbeat regulates. And she looked at her watch. She had one of those heartbeat watches. She's like, it's been 20 minutes. My heartbeat still hasn't come back to normal
Wow.
from the experience of just opening myself on stage.
Wow.
So I'm like, this is a very deep somatic shift that's happening if we're willing to do it, and also why we don't. So the book is a bit of a, if you will, a self remedy on steps you like. First, some of my story and how I went through this, but also the steps you can do to keep opening and meeting this inside of yourself.
Yeah.
And you know what? When I wrote the book, I thought I'd never give these secrets to anyone. Um, and at first, it was an academic thesis, and I was like, most people can't make sense of this jargon anyway. And then I took the academic thesis and I made it into like something a 15-year-old could read.
Hmm.
So
How do you
it's very, very digestible.
how do you guide people through that quote unquote stage fright? But you talked about fear, and I mean, I'm just thinking, how quickly does somebody shift out of that fear though? Right? Because what you're talking about just seems like a bit of a higher level than most people go to, than most people try to even touch, right? So I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
like, well, give me like give everybody who's listening like a practical step, something they could start or try so that they can start getting to that place themselves, because a lot of people do want to get on stages, they do want to impact the world, they do want to show up as their authentic selves, and because of maybe traumas in their life, or things in the past, or the way they feel the world is judging them or seeing them, they don't. And so I'm just very, very
Mhm.
curious about how you guide them or how you can guide us into like a first step, somewhere we can start besides picking up your book, which I'm going to highly recommend. How do we start?
Realize you don't have to be perfect, and realize that vulnerability is perhaps your greatest asset. So if you're scared
Mm,
about starting, you sharing this message when it feels vulnerable is going to really touch people. After you've done it 15, 20, 30 times, it's going to stop being vulnerable. And then, yes, you're going to be more confident and more polished as a presenter, but you're going to lose the vulnerability
mm,
because it now feels natural and you know you can do it. And that vulnerability is something you're going to have to keep digging to find. And it's not a vulnerability to me is not about breaking down. It's about the capacity to be open for connection, which
wow.
is not a mental switch. It's an embodied experience. Like you
Right.
either feel someone's vulnerability, or even if they're saying, "Oh, this is a very vulnerable story," but you don't feel it. It's just like it gets even more ick in that case. So I would say like lean into that, and secondly, recognize the journey of a speaker is not to appear polished.
Mm,
The journey of a speaker for many of us is to recognize and recapitulate ourselves. It's about collecting the lost parts of ourselves as we open up and share to others. And you can't do that if you're sitting at home waiting to be perfect before you start.
wow.
Um, I had a talk many. I went to a. I went to a talk many years ago where I was very judgmental of the speaker. I didn't believe any of his stories. Heard him speak before, and I realized a part of my journey. And I already knew my path was going to be in speaking, and my intuition just got very loud at one point and was like, "Whatever you're judging this guy for, you have to stop." So I went along to his talk, and I just loved him. Like it was just a practice of like, can I love this guy even though I don't believe him? This went on for the whole time. Eventually, my mind quieted down, and it was just like, oh, he's doing the best he can with what he has. And after that, I received one of the biggest gifts I've received, which is as I was walking out of the stage, you could say, there's about 400 or 500 people in there, and this woman was walking in, and she knew me from another gig I'd done before, and she looked at me. She's like, "Oh, hi, Miroslav," and I was like, "Hi," and then she looked at me. And she looked at the stage. It was like she was looking through me at the stage, and she looked back at me, and you could see she was very switched in. And she goes to me, "You're going to be doing what he's doing." I was like, "Yeah, I know." And she goes, "But you're
Hmm.
waiting to be perfect until you begin." I was like, "Yeah, I know." And she goes, "You won't be. You're going to be
Mm,
the one that's giving people permission to be imperfect." And it's like she read a part of my soul I wasn't even in a relationship to. It's like some armor dropped off, and I was like, "Yeah, that's scary." The
mhm,
fact that I don't get to
mhm,
hide behind perfection is scary, and the fact that for a lot of us, what the world is yearning for, you could say, is authenticity, is people just being
mhm.
themselves.
So true. It's so true. And I've noticed that more, coming into this year, a little bit later of last year, is that what you said a few minutes ago is very true. If somebody is on stage and they're trying to act vulnerable or they're trying to act like they're, in touch with what they're saying or doing, you can tell from a mile away. You can tell from a mile away. You just can. Especially if you're very intuitive, especially if you're like really connected and you understand that, yeah, this person on the other side of the screen is just not being authentic with me. And that's a real thing and a real problem, right? Because what's happening now, as you probably know, is, AI is taking over the world, right? And so a lot of people are using AI to try to make themselves the next whatever, and it's sounding more like AI, not like the person. Right. So what you're talking about
Mm,
is different than
yeah.
that. You're talking about connecting with you like a human, connecting with your spirituality, connecting with your belief system, connecting with your mindset, connecting with who you are. And that is a deeper work that has to happen. Because, well, first of all, you're always with you, right? So it is something that you always got to connect to. Is there something that you do, a practice that you have, a morning routine that you do to help you stay connected to you and not fall into all of these shenanigans?
And I fall into shenanigans too. There is
That's an
practices,
honest
I've
answer.
got a
That's an
regular
honest
meditation.
answer. I love that answer.
But I also find it's just about being as honest as I can be when I have access to it. And sometimes I don't. And sometimes, I'll be talking to my wife and I'll actually say, like, I don't know what's going And whenever there is the capacity to connect with what's been unable to be expressed, it's like I'll lean into that. And for me, that's in both personal and professional relationships. But there's an acceptance of the humanness of like, okay, we're scared, we're judged, whatever's going on. And I just want to track us back to one other thing. What's really important is we think vulnerability looks like something you might say to a therapist. And in having trained thousands of people now, I'm like, I've realized that's not the case. For some people, being funny is very vulnerable. For
Right.
some people, being angry is very vulnerable. For some people, being the authority figure is very vulnerable. And usually you find your vulnerability is going to show up in the area that you need to grow in. It's not going to look like a soppy
Wow.
story. Like I look at some people and I'm like, we need more of your power here. Like that's the part of you that's like that's where you're going to be most vulnerable to express your power.
Mm.
And like the book you're asking me before, that's essentially the invitation inside of it, and it's my invitation of speaking as well. It's like what the stage wants from you is the parts of you that you haven't expressed yet in your life, and when you give that to people, it's not just a verbal thing of here's something I learned. You're giving them a living transmission of what it means to hold, embody, and step into that, which AI will never
Wow.
be able to do.
No, never. Never. That's why I said that because, you'll know. You'll know. You just know. I mean, but here's the thing. What you're talking about right now, I don't think I've ever heard anybody express that way. Right? So I guess it's true. Then you must be saying a lot of things that people never heard before because I never heard that before. Right. And I love that. I love that you talked about vulnerability looking so differently than what we're assuming that it looks like. Right. Because when we're seeking vulnerability, are we seeking that piece of us that breaks down all the time? Are we seeking, but I love that. I love that you said no, it could be humor, it could be other things, it could be power, it could be authority, it could be so many different things. I really love that, Miroslav, and I love your mind. I love the way you're doing this, and I love the way you're showing up in the world. And I'm really grateful that you came onto my show because I love having these really deep, real conversations with authentic human beings that are really just changing the game for people. And I know that a lot of people who listen to the show are either speakers already or looking to be speakers, and they're entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and authors and all these things. And I have these fabulous humans like you that come onto my show, and then I have these amazing listeners that work with people who have been on my show. And that's such a gift. I love
Mm.
that is a gift of my platform because I've had so many people come to me say, Nina, I found, for instance, Miroslav on your show and I started working with him and this is what's happened. It's been an amazing experience. So before we wrap up, because I know I said 30 minutes, I want to honor that. I do want people to really know how to work with you and pick up your book and find out what you do. Maybe follow some talks that you've had, things like that, because I love what you're doing. And I think it's beautiful and it's human and it's just an authentic place. And I want to follow you myself. So just give us all that information.
Yeah, it's great. Well, let's stay in touch, Nina. Best
Yeah.
way to connect with me is social media. So Miroslav Bardovic, Bardovic, and Miroslav. So LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, you'll find me on all the places. You could probably find me on YouTube as well if you search that. But if not, connect on one of these platforms. Say, hey, I was listening to Nina Perez. Straight talk, no sugar. And I was curious, and let's connect and all that kind of stuff. I have trainings all over the world in
Okay.
2025. I have a baby coming as well, so that's going to be an
Oh,
interesting second half to the year. Yeah, very exciting.
so exciting.
But yeah, you can reach out. I can let you know. The book you can find on Amazon. You can find it on Audible, Spotify, all the usual places.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me and like I just love this conversation and I love the perspective that you just gave me on talking and being on stage and not having to be perfect and all those things because I am a recovering perfectionist. I'm trying to get myself out of it. And so I get that. And I mean I've spoken on stages, in like Dominican Republic and all these different places, but um I started with thinking I had to be perfect and I had to have my message aligned. And when I let that go, I didn't let it go as deeply as you did, but when I let go the perfectionism piece, I connected with people even more. So thank you for being here
Mm.
and sharing all of your wisdom and talent and this knowledge because I think it's going to help a lot of people. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Guys,
Thank you, Nina.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me and Miroslav. I know we could probably talk to him for hours, but we're not going to do that because the guy is busy, okay? And he has a baby coming, so we have to like let him go. But thank you guys for hanging out with me and him. I'm going to make sure to link all of his information below. I want to make sure that you guys follow him and pick up his book and, connect with him, because I think it's, when somebody's doing something phenomenal in the world and reaching people at a different level and something that is unique to what we are used to, that's the kind of people I like to be around. So make sure you guys hook up with him. I love you guys so much. This is Nina Perez, straight talk, no sugar added. Until next time.